What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, Sugar Ray. And G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we take a look back at the first time comedians took the stage with this week's guest, Dylan Brody. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and co-host of Done Way Past Funny. This is part 2 of our 3-part interview with the very talented and ridiculously prolific Dylan Brody. Enjoy.
So I go into I'm working at the Improv. I'm working at the Comedy Store, and I'm sleeping on the roof. And I take a call from someone at HBO who's casting for a pilot that's going to be a newsy sort of a sketch comedy show where they do a news reporter and they do commentary and they do reports from the field. It was way pre Daily Show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to come in and read a script, and it's homophobic crap. I get the call. They want me to go to Mitzi and give them and get 6 names for them to look at. I go to Mitzi. I ask her for 5 names. I add mine to the list. I send them the list. I go to audition at HBO. I left off someone I didn't like and who wouldn't have worked. Wasn't good. I went to HBO. I'm there with Andy Clay, not yet the Dice Man. A couple of other guys. Alan Havey might have been in the room. I don't remember. He might not have moved out here yet. It was that kind of crowd. Jim Carrey was up for this show, I think. And they hand me sides that they want me to read. And it's literally, it's like, look, you go hanging around, you go hitchhiking on the Hershey Highway, you're bound to pick something up. Oh. Right? So it's like anti-viral control homophobia, right? It's killing gays. I don't see how that hurts us so much. Right? It's like that kind of crap.
Right.
That was quite popular at the time. But I've already been doing 7 or 8 minutes on homophobia on stage. So I go through the thing in the lobby with a pen. And the whole thing is presented as straight to the camera commentary.
Right.
I'm supposed to be delivering this like, this is the opinion of me not speaking for my network, right?
Right.
The opinions are solely the opinions. There's that kind of a commentary. So I go through it. And it's holiday-ish time, and I go through it and I do. So my father is afraid of the boy I'm dating. When I say boy, I kid, he's of age. My father says, and then I lay in one of their jokes. Boom. To which Alvin, the hero of my life, replied, and I'd lay in one of my jokes. And I do this whole thing. And they are cracking the fuck up. And while I'm writing this, everyone else in the room, I can hear the muttering around me as they're reading it, practicing, hoping to be able to memorize so they can stare at the camera while they say this horrible crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it all ready, and I've done all these rewrites, and it's hilarious. Now, I've cut out pieces, I've shortened it by a paragraph, and I've made it funny and something I can say. And I do the piece into the camera. And they are all there's 4 guys behind the table. There was one woman who never spoke, 4 guys, and then 1 guy down at the end on the left, my right, his left. Uh, I do the piece and I'm crushing. This guy way down at the end is not laughing. Everyone else, like if they were sipping, they would be putting. At one point, I think I almost got a spit take out of someone. I remember bottles of water, and I may have gotten a spit take out of someone, um, because they're hearing jokes that they've heard all day long
Right.
being topped by something that touches their conscience with a more interesting truth. We go through this whole thing and they say, okay, that was really good. That was really funny. Beautifully done. Would you mind giving us one read just as it is on the page? And I said, only if you'll turn off the camera. And they said, what? And I said, I cannot have a videotape floating around the world of me as myself claiming that homosexuals are responsible for AIDS, that we shouldn't be working to cure it. There were three or four, can't remember what the other one, but they were like the basic gay tropes at the time. Oh, that gays should be restricted to specific neighborhoods and specific occupations, that it had to do with just, putting a fence around the East Village and let
Right.
them all decorate each other's houses until they die out because they can't reproduce, right? It was like that kind of
Right.
crap. And I just went through the litany of things that I could not be heard saying I believed on camera. And they were all sort of chuckling and looking a little uncomfortable. And finally, the guy at the center of the table, who just was looking like this, and he said, "You understand that this gentleman down at the end is the writer of this show, right?" And I said, "Oh, no, I didn't really. Congratulations getting a show picked up. I think we've seen enough." And I was out. And I was proud of it. And I went back to sleep on the roof of the freaking Comedy Store in near the holidays when it was cold and rainy and irritating. And that's a kind of punching up that I don't mind doing. That's punching up. That's direct punching up. I was literally punching
Right.
up. I took the script and I punched it up. But uh, but it's also the kind of thing that didn't get me a lot of friends or jobs.
Now, the first set that you did, you did a couple of jokes there that actually just changed a couple of things in it, and they're still relevant, like the airport, the
I was
airline.
hearing that.
Yeah, it's
I
like
heard that. That's Southwest now.
yes, that's Southwest, and the other one was
Um,
the oh yeah, uh, underreporting. If the problem is that they're reporting, uh,
that joke. That's a confession. That joke.
yes,
Uh, uh, blame. I have to confess a thing. Blaming. Over. It's like blaming overpopulation on the Census Bureau.
right,
That punchline was written not about governmental corruption originally, I don't believe. It was written about something else by Josh Seelig, a genius. When I was in college, when I first had gotten in at the Improv, and I was taking the train down, he said, "Hey, can I give you a joke? Would you like a joke?" And I said, "Sure." And he gave me the joke, and I don't remember what it was that was being blamed on the press, that blamed on the media right then. But it was blaming this on the media is like blaming overpopulation on the Census Bureau. And I said, "That's a fucking good joke. How much do I pay you for it?" And he said, "Just do it on stage and tell me if I got a laugh." He now creates preschool television. And I've written on 2 of his preschool animated series for him.
cool,
Peking Duckling and a different one that I'm blanking. Oh, The Dog and Pony Show. The Dog and Pony Show. Both really funny preschool work, and he's a lovely human. So, in answer to your question, yes.
now the other one, because what you did with the blaming on the census, blaming overpopulation on the
Mm,
census, is just what Trump did during COVID when he says the problem isn't that people are dying, is that they're reporting it. Don't mess up my
yes.
numbers. Yes.
Yes. Um, and it's one that will keep coming up. That one is an evergreen joke of mine that I use frequently. The opening joke in this piece was my opening joke for about 6 years.
Man, I really
Um,
need you people.
well, that was my opening line, but the opening joke
Oh,
was girlfriend dropped me off at the airport. She's
yes.
premenstrual. Uh, it's a syndrome that causes women for 4 or 5 days out of every month to behave exactly the way men do all the time. Now, it had some other jokes that didn't go into that set because it didn't require them. Uh, I don't remember what all the jokes were. I'm sort of she was taking me to the airport, which was good because I know she really wanted to throw me a surprise vasectomy. Uh, I don't remember what they all were. But it was all the sort of those 4 days relationship jokes. And um, hey, honey, lighten up. Oh, now it's cracks about my weight.
Yes.
It was a lot of that stuff. So I cut all of that for it, but that joke I was called out on at a college gig. Apparently, I retained it from a Robert Heinlein novel that I read when I was 15. So I stopped using it as my opening line and moved the whole chunk to way later in my act and started it by saying, Robert Heinlein once wrote, and it still got the laugh and a little bit of the applause break.
Right.
And my conscience was then clear. And it led me into a whole series of things that I was able to work with. And at that time, when I moved out here in '86, one of the movies that I went around and around with under a free option, because one of the other ways that I sabotaged my career was to, if anyone wanted to play with my scripts, I would say, "Oh,
Right.
sure, take the option of that for a year. Let's see what we can do." And what he wanted to do was have me rewrite it every month. Uh, and never show it to anybody. But it was called PMS the movie. The idea of this specific cycle of moods had just come into the news in '84, '85. The phrase PMS, the acronym, I don't think existed until the early '80s. So as I was doing this material, it wasn't misogynist.
Right.
It was about, we are just recognizing that this happens in a cycle. Um, I mean, it was a little bit of a shock, and a lot of people were saying, "What did that thing mean?" When Woody Allen said in Stardust Memories, uh, no, his friend, I think Tony Roberts said, "She's great 3 days of the month. The other 28 months, she's a freaking mess," which was a genius line. Um, Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. Whatever it is we're doing next.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hit the second. Let's hit the second
Am
half
I
of this.
am I doing this right? I don't think I'm doing this right.
There is no wrong way of doing it. There is no wrong way of doing it. It's like sex. There's no wrong way of doing it.
Oh
I
crap!
think.
He's a storyteller now. We forgot he's a storyteller now.
Uh, you know, well, I'm gonna hit the next clip. I want to share some.
Okay, go
When
go.
I mean, I when I first started, I had an idea of what I wanted to do as a comedian. Okay, and I knew I was going to be a storyteller, but I did not want to put all my stories out there while I was trying to get discovered. So I began doing news stories. I would, take and the more rare the news story, the better I liked it. So I would go to like deep
Nice.
undercover into local papers and find stories, and then beef them up and make them funny. So I was doing a show, and this lady is cracking up. And when I was done, she goes, "Oh, you are hilarious! You're hilarious!" And you made all that up. I said, "No, no, no, no. These are actually news stories. I just made them funny." I said, "These are news stories." She goes, "Wait a minute. Those are news stories?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, then you're not as funny as I thought you were." And I had to explain to her that I said, "No, if I just
No.
told
Let it go.
you."
Let it go. Let it go. You don't need to explain to them.
Well,
You
she's been a
don't need to explain to them.
Well, she's been
You
one of
c
my best fans for the past
I
eight
love that.
years.
I
But
love that.
yes,
Um, I you know, I the technique that goes into making it funny. It's like I'm a martial artist. Oh, look, you can see it in I am a master. It says so right there on my belt. Um, uh, I'm a martial artist. Studied very heavily for 20 years, give or take. And then intermittently uh, since then started in my 20s. Um, and people want you to explain it to them, or they want to explain it to you, you know, and they just thank them and listen graciously. It's so much easier. And if they want you to explain it to them, uh, to ask them to be more specific. If they just critique in any way, just nod and smile and say thank you so much. I'll take that into consideration in the future.
I have.
Um,
I just want to say there's I did a set and I was at the headline. I did a set, and when I was done, again I took things from my life and from the news. And when I was done, this lady who happened to be white said to me, "You're funny, but I don't think you represent the real black experience." Now, my wife, who happens to be white, Carol, hears this and she runs over. She goes, "What do you mean my husband doesn't represent the real black experience?" And I said to my wife, I had to stop my wife. I said, "Carol, this is okay. It's okay." I said, "The woman is drunk. It's all right. She's drunk." I said, "I was raised by drunk. Let me handle her. I speak drunk." I, I said, "I speak
Write
drunk. Let
that
me
down.
handle her."
Write it down. Write
so,
it down.
so and Carol goes, and so Carol leaves me alone, but she's watching off, she's watching from the corner just to make sure that I can handle this drunk lady. But it's just so funny. She goes, "You do not represent the real black experience." And I didn't know what black experience I was missing because I had experiences and I was black. I thought that was
Sure,
enough.
sure.
What do I know?
Um, yeah, and again, no need to explain it to her. I'm kind of troubled by who happens to be black, who happens to be white, because it makes it feel like it's just an occurrence for that evening. My
Oh
wife,
yeah.
who is frequently black, but that evening happened to be white.
Well, my wife and I, since we've been together for 18 years, I say because couples begin to assimilate each other's characteristics over time.
Sure.
So my theory is that my wife has
Does
as
she
much
have
black
groovy
in
hair too? Does
her
she
as
have
I
is
have
her
white. Yes, and she
is,
has as much black in her as I have as much white in me. Except for my wife has about a little bit more black, about 6 inches more. But other than that, we have assimilated each other over time. So I call us a black couple.
nice. Uh, but again, people we wish to turn people into monoliths, don't we? Um, it no, that happens. It's funny. Happens to be feels to me a little bit like the people who look over their shoulder before they say black. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I heard. I met Bob's new boss. He's black. That's like what. You know,
Now, my wife grew up in Maine, and she was surprised that the amount of racism there was in the world. Because I don't understand that we don't have racism in Maine. I said, no, you
you
don't have
don't
black
have.
people. You don't have enough black people for there to be a race problem.
Yeah.
I said, let too many black people show up, you'll see a race problem. And so when she moves down here to Maryland and she starts working in DC, I had to remind her of two things. That first of all, I was like one of the few black people she actually knew. I mean, she's met them, but she knew me. She'd been around me. And so I said, I am not indicative of what you're going to find out in the world. It's like I'm not representative. There are just blacks are just as crazy as every other race, and like you said, we're not a monolith. And I said, and when you go to DC, you're going to hear this phrase a lot. You're going to hear black people talk in front of you and talk mean things about white people, and then they're going to look at you and say, "But not you, though." And I said, and you're going to hear that a lot. And my wife goes, "I don't understand that." And then she heard it. She goes, and they just say it out in the open. They're talking about the bosses, and it's like just so. Then they'll look at me and go, "But not you, though." That's it. I tried
Yeah.
to explain this to you. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I strive to be, well, I strive to be anti-racist and anti-homophobic. I assume that to some degree I am racist and homophobic, right? Because I grew up passing for white as a Jew.
Right.
We as Jews, just so you'll know, I don't know if people are aware of this. As Jews, we are constantly a little bit aware that while we pass as white and we sort of get by in society, there is always the possibility that at any moment we might be asked to board a train and promised bread and jam. Right? This
Yes.
this can happen in the world. We know this. It can happen to anyone,
Yes.
but we particularly know that like it happened to a friend of mine kind of thing, right? It's not
Yes.
literal there, but you know what I mean. I had to write a really shocking piece for my act that my father hates, because I heard Holocaust deniers in a bar once. They didn't start with Holocaust denial. They started simple, not knowing that I was the comic for the evening as I was ordering coffee. They started talking about how they loved this place and they hoped tonight's comic wasn't too Jewy. And then I listened a while and they got around to the Holocaust denialism. So I had to write this piece and I wrote like the beginning of it quick before I got on stage, and then I wrote the rest of it later. This the monolithicism of people can be deeply, deeply dangerous. And I try to be aware of it when I find the elements of internalized racism. I certainly have internalized anti-Semitism, um, and assume that it's something always to be examined and developed and built on. And it is my hope that I don't come across as homophobic or racist. My sister, who is gay, I used to say my sister is gay. I love her like a brother. But I've been doing this
Mm.
thing with my work where I strive to be more and more honest and truthful, and I don't like her. She's she's mean. I made the mistake of calling her instead of texting her from a burner phone, and in the phone call that we had, she accused me of misogyny and homophobia, uh, because I once mentioned a hostile lesbian in my act when I was in my 20s. And she said, it's like a word package, hostile lesbian, like you put them together. And I said,
Right.
okay, I might have been a particular lesbian I was describing. And she said, yeah, but you just put them together like you'd said it before. And I was like, yeah, what, my act? I'd said it before. And she said, right, but you know what I mean, Dylan. I think you think of any woman who's not available to you as hostile. And I said, no. I went to Sarah Lawrence. I dealt with a lot of different kinds of lesbians. And she said, do you even hear yourself? Dealt with different kinds of lesbians. I mean, what if you said Jews in that sentence? And I said, well, I live in Hollywood. I deal with a lot of different kinds of Jews. There are a lot of different kinds of people in the world. And she's right, but why do you deal with them? Why do you have to deal with people? Why don't you just go somewhere and join a community? And I said, I can't imagine in my 20s where I might have begun to believe that lesbians could be hostile. I literally have no idea why I started that story, but I'm still working on it, and I had to finish it once I started it. My point was, it all needs to constantly be worked on and developed and imagined and explored. And if we work on things we've heard before on stage, we're going to fall into traps.
Right.
And everything in that clip that I'm ashamed of, well, the one thing that I'm ashamed of in that clip is the thing that I was working on based on something I'd heard before that I knew would make people laugh, even though I didn't believe it.
Right. Hi, I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and co-host of Done Way Past Funny. You have just watched part 2 of our interview with Dylan Brody. My interview with Dylan Brody lasted a little over 2 hours. In that time, he offered up so much information that I could not fit it all into a half-hour show. So I created a three-part series as it pertained to the comedy clip that we watched together. The rest I will offer up as 2 bonus episodes in the near future. Please join us for part 3. And when you come back to join us, bring a friend. In the meantime, if you should happen to come across my co-host Sugar Ray wandering the airports, give him a breath mint and send him home. He left the stove on.